In the last stream, we were working on finally setting up the super critical phase shifter multi-block from Mechanism to allow us to turn our polonium into antimatter. This antimatter, of course, we're going to eventually turn into antimatter pellets, and those antimatter pellets are required for the creation of the final star, which we need quite a few of in order to finish the pack. Now, in the last stream, I did specify that we needed 32 of these final stars and 36 ultimate singularities in total. It turns out that is not the case. I am blind as a bat. The final star actually has an EMC value, and so once we get one final star, we can then, in theory, get as many as we like, and so we don't actually have to craft 32 of them. The downside is that it does require 100 billion EMC per final star, and right now we're at 311 million. So we're about a third of the way to 1 billion, which is 100th of the way to 100 billion. So what I think we're almost certainly going to have to do is get the final power flower Mark 16. This is super nifty in that once you craft it and place it down, it is then linked to your EMC network, and it will passively produce 48 trillion EMC per second. Normally, when you're playing with the Project Expansion add-on mod, there are a bunch of other power flowers that you can make, ranging all the way from Mark 1 up to Mark 16. Unfortunately, in this pack, every single one of these is disabled. There's just no crafting recipe for any of them, apart from the final Mark 16 power flower. So I think what we're going to have to do is make enough final stars to make the final power flower. Once we have the final power flower, we basically then have an infinite amount of EMC, and we can use that infinite amount of EMC to make all of the remaining items we need, all the remaining final stars, and all of the remaining power flowers to get the creative vending upgrade. And so if we look at this power flower here, it requires 3 final stars, 1 ultimate singularity, a creative motor, a creative energy cube, a creative storage disk, a creative fluid tank, and a creative chemical tank. All of those, apart from the chemical tank, require a final star, and so in total we need 7 final stars and a total of 8 ultimate singularities. 7 of them are used to make the 7 final stars, and then 1 more to go in the middle here. So 8 ultimate singularities and 7 final stars is substantially fewer than the 32 and 36 respectively that I thought we were needing to make at the end of the last stream, and in fact it means that in total now we only need 8,000 of each resource required to make the ultimate singularity, again, as opposed to 36,000, which is what I was thinking we need before. On top of that, in other good news, the quest right here that has us craft an antimatter pellet also gives us 2 more antimatter pellets as a reward, and so once we get our first one, we're all the way up at 3, which puts us halfway towards the 6 antimatter pellets that we need in order to craft the creative chemical tank. And so that's going to reduce the number of hours required to get all of that antimatter quite substantially. But with all of that out of the way, the thing that I actually want to work on in today's stream is this section of the quest book down here. I want to get our first Wither summoned. I want to try and get a Wither builder and a mob crusher so that we can automate the production of nether stars. It does say in the quest book here that this quest is optional. However, the final star shards here do require nether stars, and they also do require nitro crystals, which again do require even more nether stars, and so we are going to need quite a few of these in order to craft the 7 final stars that we need. And so I think automating the spawning and killing of withers is going to be the easiest way for us to go about that. Thankfully, in order to spawn a wither, we just need soul sand and wither skeleton skulls. Soul sand we can of course get with EMC, and so we can just put down an EMC link and get infinite soul sand. The wither skeleton skulls are a little bit trickier, but thankfully this recipe right here can turn Essence of Darkness and a skeleton skull into a wither skeleton skull in the metallurgic infuser, and we can make the regular skeleton skulls using 8 bone blocks and a body stone from ProjectE, and of course the bones here do have an EMC value, and so getting an infinite amount of these bone blocks should be fairly straightforward. So ideally, what we'd want to do is something similar to what we've done with the dormant recipe, this one right here, where we make 1 body stone and then we just leave that in the crafter. Again, the body stone doesn't seem too difficult to make. It's 2 Mobius fuel, 6 sugar, and 1 lapis. That is not a problem at all. And then over in here, we can just go ahead and say that 1 body stone plus 8 of those bone blocks, which we are almost certainly going to have to craft. That is fine. Let's do something like this, get ourselves a bunch of bone meal, and then let's also go ahead and do something like that and get ourselves a couple of bone blocks. Then we'll surround this like so. And we do want to make sure that this is set to EXTC so that the results of the crafting operation will go to the output buffer, but remaining items like a bucket will stay in the input buffer. That is what the body stone is. And so now we are actually going to have to get a couple more of the bone blocks here, just because we do actually need to have all 8 of them in order to teach the crafting card how this works. Although actually, I can most certainly just shift click that in, right? I totally can. Nice. Okay, cool. So that should now know how that works. Although, actually, interesting. Okay, so it looks like I am mistaken. I was under the impression that the body stone would work similarly to the soul stone, in that it wouldn't actually be used up in the crafting recipe, although that would appear to not be the case. That's not a huge problem. It does make the recipe substantially more expensive than I thought it was. I thought it was just bones, really. But that's fine. We can just teach our system how to make the body stone. And of course, we'll drop in a module for that as well into one of our pretty pipes. We'll do this and this. Good stuff. And then we should also teach our system how to make the bone blocks as well. Apply. And of course, finally, boom. And let's do this. Nice. Okay, cool. So our system should now know how to make the skeleton skulls. And then over here, we have our Essence of Darkness Metallurgic Infuser. And so with this one, we should then be able to teach this crafting module how to make those Wither skeleton skulls using regular skeleton skulls. So our current skeleton skull should be in here. It is indeed. Let me quickly add that to the back wall before I forget. We'll place it right about there. And then let's go back over to here and let's teach this crafting module that 1 regular skeleton skull equals 1 Wither skeleton skull. And so now going forward, if we get a Wither builder, this machine right here, which as the name suggests, allows you to automatically build withers, we can just place a pretty pipe onto that Wither builder with a low retrieval module, and the system will automatically craft those Wither skeleton skulls for us and send them to the Wither builder to spawn the Wither. So to get there, we've got to go through a couple of steps. I guess first things first, let's go ahead and request 2 more Wither skeleton skulls, just to make sure, 1, that our system can do it, but also to complete the quest as well. And then we need to start working with Industrial Foregoing, which is a mod we've not actually touched at all yet, I don't think. And the first step here is probably going to be for us to get a latex processing unit, this guy right here, and a fluid extractor, this one right here. These 2 machines combined are going to allow us to generate latex, which is required in order to make quite a lot of the machines from Industrial Foregoing. So let's make a couple of these pity machine frames, and then the fluid extractor is fairly straightforward here. It does require a golden pressure plate, which I think is maybe the only thing we don't have. We probably don't have a piston ready to go. That's fine. We can go ahead and craft one of those down. Good stuff. And then boom, that should be the fluid extractor. As for the latex processing unit, this does actually require a bucket of latex in order to be crafted. And I think that might be the only thing, yeah, that we are missing. That is fine. I can't help but notice that, oh, of course, it's because things like the body stone need to be added to the wall. I was going to say I can't help but notice that, yeah, we're not actually getting the things we requested, and that's because the body stone and the bone blocks need to be added to our crafting wall to allow the actual crafting to begin. That makes complete sense. So the fluid extractor goes down on the ground. This machine doesn't need power, but is faster with power. It can be used to make latex, and all it does is it extracts the latex from logs. So you can put really any vanilla Minecraft log in front of it. However, as you can see on the right hand side here, Acacia produces the largest amount of latex. It produces 4 millibuckets per work, which just means per time this bar gets to the bottom, whereas all of the other logs produce 2 millibuckets per tick, apart from the warped log, which produces 1 millibucket per tick. So we could do with getting ourselves some Acacia. Right now we don't have any Acacia. However, we can cycle through all of the saplings using the Philosopher's stone. And so if we just grab this guy, and if we go find a little bit of grass out here, we should be able to cycle through that until we get to acacia. And if you go past it, it's fine. You can just go around again. There we go. At which point we can attempt to bone meal that into existence. Fantastic. And thankfully, in the newest versions of the mod pack, these do actually have an EMC value. And so if we, for the first time in a while, grab our transmutation tablet, we should be able to add acacia logs to that. And now going forward, we can use an EMC link to generate an infinite number of acacia logs, and combining that with the fluid extractor, like so, should allow us to generate an infinite amount of latex. The process is very slow, and the process does eventually use up the log, like the log will eventually break. We can accelerate that, I think, by doing something like this, and we should see, yeah, the amount of latex there going up quite quickly. It's still not particularly fast, and we could almost certainly do with getting another flux point. I'll request a few more here because we are fully out of flux points now, but the flux point is going to allow us to make that just a little bit faster. But this is also something that I think we probably want to look at automating. If we get a block placer, we can have that infinitely place acacia logs down. We can have the fluid extractor infinitely extract latex from the logs, and then we can have that pumped around into a tank of some persuasion to give us infinite latex that we can tap into as and when we need it. That should be a bit faster. Yeah, you'll see the green bar doesn't go all the way from the top now. It goes from about halfway. So that is substantially faster. And of course, if we once again utilize our time in a bottle, that is now going up substantially faster than it was previously. And as soon as we get 1 bucket's worth of latex, we can then right-click onto the fluid extractor with a bucket, and that should be everything we need to make the latex processing unit. The latex processing unit we can put down directly next to the fluid extractor, actually. And then in here, we can set the right-hand side to push. You just click on this little button here that says latex. That's going to push the latex over into the latex processing unit. From there, we do need to get power to the processing unit. There we go. And then we could also do with water as well. And I'm realizing I probably should have built this kind of over here because that would have made it a little easier to access our unlimited water source. In fact, you know what? Let me move this entire setup. Let's take all of this and let's put it down over here. It's a little janky, but if we do this, and in fact, I think we can probably put that here and set the water tank to pull. Yeah, that's going to pull the water automatically from the ender tank, which is fantastic. We can then have our fluid extractor not there, but ideally there. Is that the right way? It is indeed. Good stuff. We can put the acacia log down, and then that should kind of just work. Let's get our flux point back down as well, and of course our basic universal cable. This time we're going to set this to push out of the back, and that should push the latex ideally over into this tank here. Never mind, that's my bad. I thought the back was this side. It's not. The back is actually the side that faces the log. I'm not quite sure why, but in here, if you click on this and hover over it, you'll see it says back and then east. And then if we press F3, on the left there, about halfway down, you can see it says that we're facing west. So east is this way, west is this way, which means that this is the back of the machine. And then the front of the machine, which is this one here, is the one we want to set to push. And that is going to move all of that into here. And this is going to combine the latex with the water to get us tiny dry rubber. The tiny dry rubber can be crafted into dry rubber, which we can then smelt into plastic, which is needed for a ton of machines and items from industrial foregoing. We're going to need a lot of this plastic, and so again, thankfully, we can make this substantially faster using our time in a bottle. And of course, if we needed to, we could also do the same here as well, although the fluid extractor really is the bottleneck here. Once we have enough, though, let's take some of those. Let's craft up our very first dry rubber, which is this guy. And once we have that, we can, of course, smelt that in one of our furnaces. I guess it doesn't really matter which one we use. We'll drop it into the smelting factory. That, of course, is going to place it into one of our ender chests. And then from there, we can take that. And now we can actually look at some of these quest lines here. So working backwards, this setup with the Wither Builder and the Crusher is ideally what we are after. The Crusher is a block that will just kill any mobs that are within its radius, and the Wither Builder will, as the name suggests, build the Wither. So those are the two machines that we're after. The Mob Crusher is the easier of the two because it only requires an advanced machine frame, whereas the Wither Builder requires a supreme machine frame. There are, I believe, 4 tiers of machine frame from Immersive Engineering. There is the Pity, the Simple, the Advanced, and the Supreme. The Supreme machine frame is made using the Advanced machine frame, the Advanced machine frame is made using the Simple, and the Simple is made using the Pity that we saw earlier. Now, all of the higher tier machine frames need to be made in the dissolution chamber from Industrial Foregoing. This is a machine that allows us to craft items with a specific fluid in its center tank. And so I think what we'll do here is we'll try and make 3 dissolution chambers, one for making things that require latex, one for making things that require pink slime, and one for things that require ether gas. So the dissolution chamber itself is made using a Pity machine frame, which is fantastic because we've already made a bunch of those. We need 3 diamond gears, a bunch of buckets, some gold ingots, and then of course the thing that we're missing right now is we need 6 plastic if we're going to make 3 dissolution chambers. Thankfully, that should just be a case of spamming the time in a bottle over here. We've got 30. That's not quite going to be enough, but again, if we do this and maybe this, we should be able to get a fairly decent amount of dry rubber fairly quickly. And as soon as we have 6 plastic, we should then be able to make 3 dissolution chambers. 1, 2, and 3. Nice. Okay, so these guys we'll probably put down elsewhere because it's getting a bit cramped on that lower level. Let's put these over here. We've got this little wall of machinery. We'll do 1, 2, and 3 like that. So the latex one is fine because we can, of course, take latex out of the latex processing unit and just drop that into the dissolution chamber. Obviously, in an ideal world, we'd have that done automatically, and I might look at setting up a few ender tanks to allow us to move that over without having to do it manually. Now, pink slime is a little trickier for us to get. The pink slime you make using a mob slaughter factory, and the mob slaughter factory is kind of similar to the crusher in that it will kill any mob that is within its area of effect. The only difference is that with the crusher, you get regular mob drops. So if you kill a zombie with the mob crusher, you're probably going to get rotten flesh. If you kill a zombie with the mob slaughter factory, instead of getting mob drops, you get liquid meat and you get pink slime. And that pink slime is exactly what we're after. In order to craft the mob slaughter factory, we need another Pity machine frame, 2 more plastic, 2 iron swords, which we can definitely do, along with 2 iron axes, which we can also definitely do. We look to be just missing a little bit in the way of sticks. That's fine. Let's get that last iron axe made. And then, of course, just as before, the only thing that we're really missing here is the plastic. So again, how are we doing over here? We've got 34. 34 is more than enough. Let's get rid of this, craft up yet more dry rubber, and 2 of those is going to get us the 2 plastic that we need in order to make the mob slaughter factory. We're going to take this and place it down in front of the mob farm here. So I think what we're going to want to do is get rid of these diamond spikes here, because currently they are deleting... Whoops, let's not let those guys out. Those are currently killing the mobs. Now, I think I did just delete those diamond spikes. That's fine. We can always make more of them in the future. Let's drop the mob slaughter factory down right about here. I think if we click show working area, yeah, the working area is not currently big enough to cover that, but if we just move this forward by 1, if we get rid of this and put the mob slaughter factory here, that should actually be fine and should just require a flux point like this. Again, we'll set that to our network, and that should start killing the mobs once this progress bar hits 0, and it should produce both pink slime and liquid meat. And again, once we have over a bucket's worth, we can then try and extract this, although I have a feeling if I just right-click here, that yeah, it's going to pull the liquid meat out, not the pink slime out, which is not ideal because we don't really need the liquid meat. However, I'm fairly certain that what we should be able to do here is grab any old tank, drop that down next to the mob slaughter factory, like so, and then in here we can select the pink slime tank and set the right-hand side here to push. That's going to push the pink slime out into that tank, and then we can grab the bucket and, of course, move that over to our dissolution chamber. Now, the final one here, the ether gas, is by far the most difficult, and it's what this quest here is for, getting ether gas. It says trap a wither inside a stasis chamber and place a fluid laser base directly above it to passively obtain ether gas. So we need 3 machines here and a purple laser lens. Those 3 machines are the stasis chamber, This is a machine that you can place down and it will hold any mobs that are within its area of effect perfectly still. They basically can't move once they're in its area of effect. We then need a fluid laser base and a laser drill. The fluid laser base cannot accept power directly. You have to power the laser drill, and then the laser drill shoots lasers into the laser base. The laser base is then used to extract ether gas from the Wither. So, in order to make these, we're going to need a few of these higher tier machine frames. We do only need one laser drill to start with, although we might end up making more of these because the more of these you have, the faster the fluid laser base can work, although I think for now we should be able to use our time in a bottle to get around that fairly easily. But this requires just the one simple machine frame, which is made in the dissolution chamber with a pity machine frame, 2 plastic, 2 nether brick, 2 iron, and 1 gold gear. All of that seems pretty straightforward. We do have exactly 18 tiny dry rubber left, which is the perfect amount for us to get 2 more dry rubber. And then of course we can smelt that into 2 plastic. Of course, I do not have a smelter over here. That is fine. Let's drop you in right about there. And of course, extract that from our ender chest. As far as netherrack goes, we've got a ton. And again, we can smelt that very easily into nether brick. The gold gears are craftable. We'll take 1 of those. And then we just need iron and 1 of our pity machine frames. So with all of that, that should be all that we need. Of course, don't forget, Isaac, the nether brick that you just smelted about 3 seconds ago. That has, by the looks of it, gone back in the system. That's not going to be a problem. Let's take you out and let's go put all of this in. Now, it doesn't matter where you put this in. This recipe is shapeless, so you can put all the items in anywhere you like. So long as every single item is in, the recipe should work. And it does. So that's going to take about 15 seconds. But in order to make the other 2 machine frames, the advanced machine frames here, we are going to have to make 2 more simple machine frames, and then we need to upgrade those simple machine frames to advanced machine frames using the pink slime. Again, we do have 1 bucket's worth of pink slime, and each one only uses 500 millibuckets, so that is kind of perfect. But in order to make this happen, we need more plastic, we need some netherite scrap, which I don't think we have, although I have a feeling that we unlocked ancient debris. So we should be able to take that ancient debris and fairly easily turn that into netherite scrap using our smelting factory. So I do not see the ancient debris on there. That's because its EMC value is quite high. It's 4.19 million EMC per stack of ancient debris, which is fairly expensive, but we do have over 300 million, so I'm not really too worried about that. And basically, I'm just going to go ahead and quickly see if I can't get all of the items required to make 2 more simple machine frames, and then all of the netherite scrap and plastic required to make the 2 advanced machine frames. Okay, so a quick bit of resource gathering later. We can once again do 2 iron, 2 plastic, 1 pity machine frame, 1 gold gear, and 2 nether bricks. Unfortunately, you can't put more than 1 item at a time in any of these slots, so these do have to be done individually. You can click the little lock button there, and then that makes it a little easier to just shift click the recipe in if you're doing the same recipe over and over again. And then over here, we want to do a similar thing where we put in the simple machine frame with 2 plastic, 2 netherite scrap, 1 diamond gear, and 2 gold ingots. Again, we can hit the little lock button and make that just a little bit faster. And at that point, we could just shift click all of those back in, and we have 2 advanced machine frames as well as 1 simple machine frame. And so now it should just be a case of crafting most of this up. Do we have what it takes to craft up 2 pistons? Of course we don't. We never seem to have any planks in our system at all. That's fine. Let's get 2 more pistons. Let's get 1 more diamond gear. That should be everything for the laser drill. It is. And then for the fluid laser base, we need yet more diamond gears. That's fine. We'll make a couple of those. And we also need a diamond pickaxe, as well as some buckets, which we should have. We do. Again, we're missing plastic. Plastic is by far and away the resource that is slowing us down the most. I made a bunch of it a minute ago, but it just takes so much. Because it's a 9-to-1 ratio of this tiny dry rubber to regular dry rubber, you really don't get a lot of plastic. Either way though, that 6 there should be enough, I think, at least to get us the fluid laser base. And then for the stasis chamber, we need more gold gears, we need some soul sand, we need some dark matter. It's just the gold gears that we're missing. We'll craft 2 of those. And boom, that is our stasis chamber. So let's take that and place that down somewhere. We don't have a ton of free platform space. I could probably do with setting up a new platform on the back here behind our supercritical phase shifter. But if I put the stasis chamber down right about here, we should be able to hook that up to power. We should have a few flux points left in the system. Let's do this and this. So now, if we show working area, this is the working area of the stasis chamber. If we fly into it, we get this slowness effect. But any other mob that goes in there will be completely stationary. They just won't be able to move. And so what we should be able to do is grab some soul sand, grab the 3 wither skeleton skulls that we requested earlier, and then if we do something like this with the 3 wither skeleton skulls, that should hold this wither in stasis. The wither shouldn't explode, it shouldn't go anywhere, it should just stay here forever. As long as the stasis chamber gets power, I'm going to set the priority of this to like 1,000 just to make sure this always gets power when it needs it. Now, as for the laser drill and the fluid laser base, these need to go on top of the wither. So let me grab a little bit of cobblestone to build with here, and let's place the fluid laser base directly on top of the wither. And it looks like it does have to go there. I couldn't quite put it there. I think the wither might be taking up a bit of that space. Once we have that down, you then want to put down the laser drill like that. You want to make sure that the hole there is facing the laser base. Again, this does require some power, and while we could run an energy cable up from this flux point, it might look a little janky, so you know what, let's just do this for the time being. It's not like the flux points are particularly expensive, and in theory, that should start working now. That should start transferring power over into here, and you'll see this is actually making progress, but it won't produce ether gas until we put in that purple laser lens, and as you may have seen it coming at this point, this is made in the dissolution chamber. It again requires latex, this time with purple dye and 4 stained glass. Of course, no red dye is available, but we might have a red flower. We do indeed. Good stuff. Let's get 1 purple dye. And then do we have any glass in the system? We do. We've got a bunch. And so if we do something like this, we can get all of the glass panes that we need, and over in our dissolution chamber, we can unlock this, put in 4 glass panes and 1 purple dye, and that is going to get for us the purple laser lens, which we can then go and place into the fluid laser base like that. And now, very slowly, but very surely, this will begin producing ether gas. I believe we get 10 millibuckets of ether gas every time this completes its progress, which, as you can see, is very, very, very slow. Now, of course, we can make this faster. I don't actually know if we need to make the laser base faster or if we have to make the laser faster. Yeah, it's the laser that we need to make faster here. That's going to start pulling more power, but it is going to start making the ether gas quicker. Now, in order to make the wither builder here, we just need the 1 supreme machine frame, which only requires 135 millibuckets of ether gas. Now, of course, if we wanted to, we could try and get 1,000 millibuckets and move it over using the bucket like we did a second ago. But I think instead, what I am probably going to do is just quickly whip up 3 ender tanks, 1 for latex, 1 for pink slime, and 1 for ether gas, and I'll put those 3 ender tanks down around the base. So we can put our pink slime tank here in place of this basic fluid tank. We can put the latex tank around here somewhere to get some of the excess latex from the fluid extractor, and of course we can put an ender tank for ether gas directly next to this fluid laser base, and that will allow us to pump that directly into that ender tank and around into the respective dissolution chamber. Alright, so a few ender tanks later, and I've gone ahead and dyed these different colors to allow us to differentiate. So I have 2 that are all pink for the pink slime. I have 2 that are light blue for the ether gas. It's kind of the closest I could go with because I've also gone with light gray here for the latex. So let's pick all of these up, and then let's put our pink slime one down over here. Again, the mechanism tanks do retain their inventory when you break them, so we can fairly safely pick that up, place the tank down, and then if we press, I believe it's N, yes, whilst holding the tank, we can then turn this into bucket mode, and then right-click that onto here to empty that out. I really thought that would work. Oh, it kind of works, but it only, like, puts in and out 1 bucket's worth. That's not ideal. That's fine. Let's press N again. We'll turn bucket mode off, and then we can always just extract from there using one of our mechanical pipes. That's fine. We'll do this, and we'll do this. Set this, of course, to extract, and once that is fully empty, we can then, of course, pick both of these back up, trying as we might to not break the ender tank. Nice. And then, of course, the other ender tank can go over here on top of this dissolution chamber, like that. While we're over here, let's do the ether gas. We'll put one here, and we'll put one here. We'll set this one to output its ether gas to the top, so we're going to start to push, and that's going to fill that up nice and quickly. Over here, we can set this to pull the fluid input from the top. Nice. We can do the same here as well. Fluid input set to pull at the top. That's going to pull the pink slime in. Might as well do the same with this whilst we're here. We'll put you there, and we'll say pull from the top. And then we kind of need to decide where we're going to put this ender tank, because over here right now, all of our latex is going into the latex processing unit. We could put it here, and I could try, again, if this is the front, I guess this is the left, which I think is this side. If I set two sides to push, I don't know if that evenly distributes between the two, or if it prioritizes one over the other. We'll speed it up just a little bit, and then we can always go and check and see if we're getting latex over here. We are. Nice. Okay, cool. But then I don't know if we're actually getting latex in here. We're not, but I think that's fine. Back over here, though, now that we have ether gas in here, we should have everything we need in order to make the Supreme machine frame. Now, let's not forget, we also need another advanced machine frame in order to make the Mob Crusher. And so, essentially here, what we're going to have to do is, once again, get two pity machine frames, 1 and 2. We're going to have to upgrade those two pity machine frames to simple machine frames, so more plastic, more nether brick, more iron, more gold. Then again to advanced, we've seen this before. And then for Supreme, the only difference here is that we actually need netherite ingots as opposed to netherite scrap, and then some diamonds instead of gold, but that should be fine. We've got the netherite scrap. We can make netherite ingots very easily using this recipe right here. Let's just take 2 of those. And so now it's just a case of us getting even more plastic and throwing all of the ingredients into the dissolution chambers. And once again, a good chunk of time off of our time in a bottle later, we should now have everything that we need to get all of the required machine frames here. Let's make this nice and fast. Let's dump all of those back in. That gets us 2 simple machine frames. Over here, we can then dump all of these in. That's going to, again, make that nice and fast, and that's going to get us the 2 advanced machine frames. We're going to take one of those advanced machine frames and drop it in here with 2 diamonds, 1 diamond gear, 2 netherite ingots, and 2 plastic. Again, we'll make that nice and fast, and boom, we have our first Supreme machine frame. And so, in theory now, we should be able to make both the Mob Crusher and the Wither Builder. So I'm gonna make the Mob Crusher first, because I realized that I've kind of messed up the ordering of the quests here, and I think I can fix it if I make the Crusher first. So we need a sword, we need 2 gold gears, and I think that should be about everything. It is fantastic. If I put the Crusher down in front of this Wither, I don't actually know if that will kill it. I think it might. Let's try that. And then, of course, let's give that some power. We can check its range here, which is very, very small. You can make range add-ons. There are multiple of them going from tier 1 up to tier 12, and these, as you may have guessed, increase the range of whatever industrial foregoing machine you put them in. We'll go ahead and make a simple one. We'll make this one here with 2 redstone, 2 glass panes, and 4 iron nuggets. How much redstone do we have? A ton. We've still got a few glass panes left from a moment ago, and we should have, yeah, a ton, 55,000 iron nuggets, which is very nice indeed. So we'll do 4 of those, 2 of those, and 2 of those. Give that a little tap, and 1 more tap. And there we go. And if we drop that in here, we should see, yeah, the range gets substantially bigger, at which point, if I give that power, does that kill the Wither? We'll find out when this hits 0. It does not, which is interesting. It's probably because of the fact that the Wither hasn't exploded yet. So I think what I might do then, I'm fairly certain that because of the fact that I have my base chunks claimed using FTB chunks, that the Wither won't deal any damage, like it won't actually break anything. The Mob Crusher, I'm fairly certain, can go through walls, and so as awkward as it is going to look, I think if we grab our wand here, can we then go ahead and try and build this up? We can, I don't know if it matters that I'm kind of boxing the Wither in. I think it might do in that he might then kind of clip out. So you know what? Let's try not to break the stasis chamber. This is by far and away not the recommended way of doing this. But I'm going to go ahead and just build this up a little bit so it goes up and around the Wither. Like that. And then we'll just box him in like this. This is all very temporary. I'm then going to turn off the stasis chamber by just changing this to redstone mode, run with redstone signal. So it shouldn't be running. There we go. The Wither is flashing, so he should explode. Fantastic. Hopefully, if this is working, it killed it. Fantastic. That gets us our nether star. The reason I wanted to do that, and of course we could tear this down now, I don't need it to be here. The only reason I did that is that in order to complete the quest line here, I just need to pick up the stasis chamber. This one right here. We do also need to get a bucket worth of ether gas, which I'm assuming, yeah, we do not have, like not even close really. So I guess what we're gonna have to do is replace that down. Ideally, replace the floor that I broke. And get another Wither going. I am going to move this, of course. This is not going to be the permanent resting place of this mob crusher. Let's get some more soul sand. And let's quickly request some more Wither skeleton skulls. And then I'll just use the time in a bottle to see if we can't get a bucket of ether gas fairly quickly. And there we go. We have over 1,000 millibuckets of ether gas inside of our dissolution chamber. And so I'm fairly certain that yes, we can indeed extract that. I'm going to put it right back in because we don't actually need to be holding the bucket. We can claim all of our rewards here. Good stuff, good stuff. We actually get a second bucket, which is, I guess, quite nice to have. And so now it's just a case of making the Wither Builder. For the Wither Builder, we need more plastic, another machine frame, a nether star, 2 Wither skeleton skulls, and 3 soul sand. We have all of that. The Wither Builder is done, and that is that quest also complete. We get our nether star back, which is very nice of them. And so now we have everything that we need in order to automate the spawning and killing of withers, because now we can just send Wither skeleton skulls and soul sand to the Wither Builder. That will build the Wither, and then we can use the mob crusher to kill those withers. So what I think I will do is, between streams, I think I'll work on building a platform back here so we can start to move some of this stuff, because I don't like having this here particularly. But again, just as a proof of concept here, what I think I'll do is we'll place down our Wither Builder like this. If we show the working area, this is 1 block above where you think it would be. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to build a glass cube around this so that we can stop the Wither from flying away. Again, it shouldn't be able to deal any damage here to any of our stuff. I'll go 1 more out like this just to be safe. Once that cube is built, again, only temporary, do not worry. We'll put this down like that. We'll throw the upgrade back in again. Just quickly check that does indeed cover the area where the Wither will be. It does. Fantastic. Let's give this some power, like so. And again, because of the fact that it is temporary, I am going to just grab some universal cable out of the system and just temporarily run this over like this to connect that up to power as well. And we don't need this extra one here. There we go. That is almost good to go. Now all we need to do is send the Wither skeleton skulls and the soul sand round into the Wither Builder. So what we'll do is we will, of course, run our pretty pipe system over to here. So we'll run our pipes kind of down around. Gosh, this pipe is so green. And it's holding 133,000 millibuckets, and it's got a ton of space left. You love to see it. Let's go and run this down and along around over to our pre-existing pipe. I should be a lot more careful when breaking blocks like this around here, because if I break this pipe, the whole base is going to go up in radiation. But then, again, I'm going to be careful here. We need to go into here, and we need to give it a low retrieval module. Speaking of which, I think we should almost certainly increase this to a medium. And then we might as well also, you guessed it, go for the high, just because they're so cheap to make. So we'll put this in here, and we'll tell this to request both soul sand and Wither skeleton skulls. I think, yeah, thankfully the Wither Builder is quite clever in that it designates these 3 slots to Wither skeleton skulls and these slots here to soul sand. Now, I did notice, oh, it looks like that might have just worked. Oh, no, not quite. It put the soul sand down, but they didn't put any wither skeleton skulls down. I did notice we're running into a slight issue, and that issue is that the body stones don't seem to be going into this drawer. The first one does, but then the next ones don't. Like, it's just not extracting the body stones here and putting them into the drawer, which is problematic because we need them to go into the drawer, and they do fit in, but it just doesn't work. So what I think I might do then is to try and fix that. We could change the recipe over here so that the body stone never has to go back if we just teach our if we change this. So let's get rid of the body stone recipe. We'll take that out. The one that's left in here is the one that makes bone meal blocks. That's kind of fine, although I guess we probably don't even need that recipe either. Let's take that recipe out as well, and then let's change the recipe for the skeleton skull. We'll change that, and instead teach the system that 1 skeleton skull requires 2 Mobius fuel, 6 sugar, 1 lapis, and 72 bone meal. Can I do that with the bone meal? Let me check. I don't know if I can tell it that it needs more than a stack of bone meal. I think I can if I do something like this, but I think it might just keep things simpler if we do leave this recipe in here. That's fine. What we'll do is we'll change the body stone recipe to int. So if we hit apply there, now when we change this recipe, which we're going to do right now, we're going to get rid of the body stone, and we're instead going to say that it needs sugar, lapis, and Mobius fuel. Again, we'll do the specific amounts up in here. So it needs 6 sugar, 2 Mobius fuel, and 1 lapis, like that. That way, what should happen is it should send everything in required to make the body stone. The body stone should be made, but it should stay in the input slot and then instantly be turned into a skull. So I think that should work. Hopefully now the system should, in theory, spawn a wither, if there are indeed 3 skulls available, which there are. Fantastic. That wither is going to explode, but not deal any damage, although that chicken might be in the blast radius, I'm not entirely certain. Then we should see the crusher work almost instantly at killing the wither. It did. Fantastic. We can make this even faster as well with other add-ons that we can make in the future, and I think that, or I hope I should say, that if this is working correctly, now it should just send all of the required items to make the body stone and the skull in at once, and that should make the wither skeleton skulls that we need in order to keep this going forever, making us an infinite amount of nether stars that we can use to craft up as many final star shards as we need, and also as many of the niotic crystals as we need as well. Oh, of course, one final thing here. I was so confused. I tried to request a wither skeleton skull here, and it was like, nope, you can't do that. That's because our Mobius fuel isn't in a drawer. Our Pretty Pipes network doesn't have access to it, despite the fact that we have access to it via this guy over here. We've got the transmutation interface. That is fine. Let me take one of those storage downgrades that we stole from our ore processing setup. We'll put that in over here. We'll drop in the Mobius fuel, and then we'll just request another EMC link to have those constantly pumped in and available to the Pretty Pipes network. Boom. Mobius fuel and extract. Fantastic. Okay, that should get to work making some of those wither skeleton skulls. Again, I can dump a lot of what's in here into the system, but those skulls should start getting made. If we go and look up here, it's possible. Yeah, look at that. There's a wither already, which you love to see. Stuff's getting thrown in here. Not quite sure why the glow ink sac and the block of lapis is in there. I think that's because temporarily this pipe was empty, and so it thought it could use it as a storage medium, but that is not what we were after at all. But this does appear to be working. The wither did just spawn in. We should hopefully see more wither skeleton skulls getting sent over there to spawn more withers. There are, of course, little tweaks we could make to this to make it a little bit faster. For example, down here, we could change this from 1 to, 16 wither skeleton skulls or 16 soul sand. That way it's going to send more of them at a time as opposed to requesting them one at a time, which is quite slow, but that's something I'll probably do when I move this over to its own dedicated platform. And yeah, we do now have as many nether stars as we like, and so next time we can come back and we can start looking at kind of just working towards the final star shard. We're almost at our first bucket of antimatter, just over halfway there, so hopefully we'll get that fairly soon. That's going to get us our first 3. But yeah, next time we come back, we'll look at getting the ultimate singularities. We are having a little bit of trouble over here in terms of our ore processing system. I'll get into it in the next episode though, but we can look at getting some quantum compressors to start making some singularities. We can look at automating the production of precision mechanisms, and we can look at making our first nitro crystals to allow us to put all of that together to start making our final star shards, which we can do before we get antimatter. And there are also extra things we need here, like this refined radiant, which again requires more HDPE, which thankfully we do still have set up and we can tap into to make that happen. But we are slowly but surely, chat, getting towards the end of this pack. The end, I think, is in sight. For now though, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this episode of Mechanical Mastery there.